This is the time of the program where I first began by telling you about my team. Now you see, when I remember when I branched out on my own. I was driving around in my pickup truck much like I'm doing today, just going and doing little venues everywhere. Started out at Christian concerts, opening up for the concerts. And I remember talking to a buddy of mine. I was getting discouraged. He's the leader of the stand strength team. He's got 20-some athletes, charter bus, tour bus. I mean, he goes all over the world, got his own radio station. And I'm like, Terry, I'm doing this on my own. When is God going to send me athletes? And he said, don't you worry about it. You just hang in there. God will send you your athletes. Well, let me tell you, in 1 year, God has given me what I think is the dream team of the Strength Ministries. He's not only given me athletes, He has given me the best of the best. Several of the people split from the power team and have now come over to my team. These were the guys that the power team all said were the holy ones. Nobody could stand to be around them because they were holy. Well, isn't that what being a Christian and being an evangelist is all about? You're supposed to be above reproach. Amen. So, Paul Rogers from London, England. You guys probably know him as the Terminator from Terminator 2. He was Arnold's stunt double. You might know him from Disney MGM Studios, where he played the mechanic in the Indiana Jones stunt show. Or maybe you remember him from the American Gladiators. He was Foor, the great big blonde guy. Yeah, one of the most wonderful men and little brothers in the Lord you've ever met before in your life. He's awesome. Then we have Josh Wisnet. Josh was an All-American football player for East Texas University. Went on to play for the Dallas Desperados Arena Football League. He's got 2 or 3 master's degrees and some things that I can't even, but in all honesty, Josh is probably one of the greatest preachers I have ever heard in my life. He is phenomenal. And God just brought him on board. Then we have Mighty Corey Schlesinger. Anybody remember him? Number 30 from the Detroit Lions. Played for Nebraska, won a national championship against the powerhouse Miami Hurricanes with Ray Lewis, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and Warren Sapp, and ran them over, scoring 3 touchdowns in the national championship game. Then he had a 13-year career with the Detroit Lions, 3 years All-Pro, 1 year started as an All-Pro. Wonderful brother in the Lord. He was the first athlete that God gave me. Then we have Ken Etta, who is a professional bodybuilder, one of the only natural professional bodybuilders. He is 5'9" and weighs 280 pounds. He has 24-inch arms. He is from Kenya, and he is one of 22 children born to a voodoo chief. And he was saved by grace from a group of athletes called the Power Team that came to Africa. Pretty amazing how it goes full circle. Then we had, let's see who else. Sean King from the Carolina Panthers, played for LSU. Wound up going to Carolina Panthers in the 2nd round of the draft, the expansion draft, played there, and then he went on to play for several more seasons with the Indianapolis Colts. His brother Jerome King, who played with Tampa Bay, he played with several others. Needless to say, God has given me some decent people, and each one of these guys has got a testimony that will absolutely boggle your mind. Then I have one guy, if you go on our website, get a chance to look at it. I have one guy that used to be a hitman for the Mafia. Spent 28 months in combat, Vietnam. When he came out, he was recognized for his talent for killing people by the Mafia. And he spent the next 15 years working for the Gambino crime family. He did, and listen to this, he was on death row in 2 different states, and God has delivered him off of death row in both states, and he is now a senior pastor at a church. Now that's the grace of God. So for those of you that think you've done things that are too bad, or you screwed up too bad, that God will never forgive you, God will never bring you back, remember something. The Bible says that God is the purifier of silver. What is purification of silver? The silversmith takes the silver ore, which has the dirt, the garbage, the slag, and everything else mixed in with the silver. He places it into a ladle. He then places it over a flame, puts it in the hottest part of the flame, and leaves it there until all of the garbage rises to the top. He then wipes away the slag And he knows the silver is pure when he sees his image in it. So for those of you that think that you're going through stuff right now, God is just removing the slag. Hang in there. It's not what you do that determines God's outcome. It's how you act during the times that you're in the valley that determines how he's going to answer your prayer. So hold in there. Don't give up, whatever you do. If I'd have given up, I'd still be in a wheelchair. Amen. But I knew God had something different for me. And he answered that prayer 2 years ago, and 2 years ago was last September. So hang in there. Well, so now comes the part where I usually let one of my guys give their testimony. I'm going to give you my testimony. I grew up in a little town called Saginaw, Michigan. Anybody know where that's at? Yeah. Blue-collar family, all kinds of General Motors plants. My dad, or I was the youngest of 5 children. We grew up in the inner city of Saginaw. And when the race riots broke out in the late 60s, things got pretty bad in Saginaw too, so we had to leave the inner city and moved out into the suburbs. When I began to live in the suburbs, there wasn't kids to play with, I didn't have anybody to hang out with, there wasn't much to do. I sat around and ate. Today's people would have called me horizontally challenged. Back then they just called me fat. It got to the point, people think that old saying that sticks and stones may break your bones but names will never hurt you, that is a lie sold from the pits of hell. Because in the 3rd grade, my 3rd grade teacher was watching a film on the NFL and the linemen and how they eat 5 meals a day. And she looked at me in front of the entire student body and said, "Dan, as fat as you are, boy, you ought to like going into the NFL." That absolutely destroyed me. It broke my heart. I went home, told my mom, I don't even want to go back to school again. Matter of fact, I don't even want to live if I got to live like this. And she said, "Honey, you can change what you are. You just got to work at it. You got it." So, you know, unfortunately, in today's world, that's what everybody thinks they have to do. So rather than get a G.I. Joe with a Kung Fu grip for Christmas, I got a 110-pound weight set from Kmart. By the time I was 11 years old, I could lift it over my head with one hand. I had a hole inside of me that was so big, you could have driven a truck through it.